Hola, this video is all about preterite and imperfect tense once again, but this time we're going to be using multiple verbs in one sentence. So these are going to be like compound sentences and complex sentences. Just as a refresher, preterite tense, I'm going to talk about a train trip I went on in Spain on this high-speed train. If I were talking about it in the preterite tense, it would be like single events from my trip. So I could say something like, Yo tomé el tren, I took the train from Madrid to Barcelona. Or I could say the train went 300 kilometers per hour, because that was a one-time thing. However, if I said the train always went 300 kilometers an hour, then I'd use the imperfect tense. Similarly, you also use the imperfect tense for description. So if I said the train was expensive, that's describing, so I'd use the imperfect tense. So one word we're going to use a lot when doing like compound and complex sentences is word mientras. That means while. So for instance, if I have this picture of a train station, I could say the woman was texting while the man was walking down the escalator. I'm going to think of these as two ongoing events going on at the same time. So since they are going on at the same time, we don't really know when either started or stopped in comparison to each other. We're going to say that they are both in the imperfect tense. So when I'm doing this sentence, I'm going to have to conjugate both clauses in the imperfect tense. Do note that when there are two clauses in one sentence, so I get that this is one full sentence, in each clause there has to be one conjugated verb per clause. And a clause is like a part of a sentence. So if I'm going to put this in Spanish, the woman was texting while the man was going down the escalator. I'm going to think of this as two parts. First, I'm going to do the woman was texting, la mujer texteaba, or I could say mandaba textos. So that is in my imperfect tense, but I'll have my word while. I'll put it in all caps to show that it's starting my new clause, and my new clause is the man was going down the escalator. So that's really like, could be two standalone sentences, so that's why I have to conjugate each verb. El hombre, to go down, is bajar, so I have bajaba. Las escaleras mecánicas. So here, both of my verbs are in the imperfect tense and imperfect tense. Another example, which I have in the notes packet if you're following along there, is I was eating while he was sleeping. So both are ongoing things. I don't really know when one started or either stopped. Another clue to imperfect tense is like the was or were plus ing verbs. So I was eating, I have to do comer, take off my er, imperfect ending would be comía. While, mientras, él dormía. So note both are in the imperfect tense. And I conjugate both because they could be standalone sentences, which makes them clauses. Another word we will use a lot to make complex sentences is cuando, when. Notice that the word cuando here does not have an accent mark. When it's a question words get accent marks, so I'd have that accent on it, but it's not a question word here, so no accent mark. So cuando is going to happen or come up a lot when I have an interruption. So something was happening, like he was sending Snapchats when the train arrived. One of these is an ongoing thing. I don't know when he started sending Snapchats, so I'm going to have this part be in the imperfect tense, because it's an unclear time of when it started. However, when the train arrived, arrivals and departures are preterite, a more specific time. So that has to be in preterite. Whenever we have a sentence of cuando, the one part, the ongoing part, is going to be in the imperfect tense, whereas my interruption is going to be in the preterite tense. So here, my ongoing part was sending Snapchats. So I could say él mandaba Snapchats. Cuando. Here comes my interruption. Suddenly, the train arrived. El train llegó. And I had to change llegar into llegó, which is the preterite, the sudden interruption one. If you're following along in the notes packet, the example here is I was eating when I saw the man. So I was eating is my ongoing one. I don't really know when I started or stopped eating. So yo comía, or I could just say comía, when, cuando yo vi al hombre. And V is the preterite form of ver, to see. I put the a here because the man is a direct object, so he gets a personal a before him. Another time we'll have multiple verbs in one sentence is what I'll call a compound verb, is if there are multiple action verbs going back to the subject. So I'm talking about this couple waiting on the bench for a train. We said they put on masks, left their house, bought tickets, and waited for the train. So if I have like a list of action verbs, those are all one sentence. All action verbs are going to get conjugated because they're all like a separate phrase. And they are all one-time events. So they are all going to be in the preterite tense. So since we're all one-time things, that's why I'm making them all preterite. So I'd say ellos. First thing they did was put on masks. Se pusieron las mascarillas. So ponerse, I put in the preterite where pusieron. They left their house. Salieron de su casa. Salir is to leave or go out. So preterite, they ending with eron. They bought tickets. Compraron boletos. The aron ending is for ar preterite. Y esperaron el tren. And esperaron, preterite of esperar, to wait for. I just put those on separate lines so it would be more clear if I conjugated each one. Finally, this isn't really with having multiple verbs in one sentence, but some specific words will point out to you whether you should be using the preterite tense or imperfect tense for past tenses. Like I've said, preterite is pretty much always single events. So if I said something like last, like week, year, whatever, last month, the word for last in Spanish is pasado or pasada. So that is specifying a single time, so that will always be preterite. Also for listing events, like the last slide was, you could say something like luego, después, entonces. Those all mean like next or then. So those will also always trigger preterite. Imperfect, our clue is it's routinely occurring, or we don't know how many times it happened. So words like siempre, always, would show that. Normalmente, normally signifies a routine, so that would be imperfect. If you have something like cada is each, todos is every, so that shows that happened many times. It's like if I say each summer, each year, every year, same thing. They're both going to be imperfect tense. One phrase that comes up a lot is todos los días. That means every day in Spanish. So in this video, we went through when to use a preterite tense and imperfect tense when you have multiple verbs in a sentence with mientras, while. That's the one where both are imperfect because both are ongoing. Cuando, one is imperfect for ongoing, one is preterite for an interruption. And then series of events when you're listing things, use imperfect. Adios. Have a nice day.